Once again, good morning, good afternoon to all those joining us today. Today we'll be doing a webinar on how we can accelerate file transfers through LiveU's DataBridge. On this webinar with me is Chris Berry from LiveU. My name is Elton Canero, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Cloud Services here at Fal Catalyst. And I'll let Chris introduce himself.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Chris Perry. I'm the product manager for the Americas here at LiveU, and very excited to be working closely with FileCatalyst to show you this presentation and a very exciting demo toward the end of it.
Cool. And yeah, so we'll begin the webinar. There will be a chance for Q&As at the end. By all means, if you do have a question, you can ask it. We'll try and answer it depending on what the question is, but otherwise we're going to leave some questions and answer time at the end to answer any questions you may have. Cool. So just a bit about Fal Catalyst. For those of you who have not heard of us before or have not been to some of our webinars, we offer a secure, efficient, and reliable software platform that allows you to transfer files across your global networks really fast. It's a patented algorithm. We've been around since the year 2000. We've been doing file transfers since then. We have a lot of support for cloud-based workflows, including support for different object storages. We have a lot of tools that allow you to manage your transfers, see what's going on in your network, all from the web browsers. For those of you who want to integrate our technologies, we have a very strong suite of APIs and SDKs that you can use to embed our technology within any platform. And last but not least, our technology is very easy to use. It's very easy to get up and running, and you could basically be transferring files within minutes. We've won a couple of awards in the media and broadcast space for the work we've done. Some of the work involves, the Olympic Games that we covered to NBC Sports, but also we've been recognized in the industry as a major player when it comes to file transfer. Our platform is, it's a horizontal application that can, be deployed across any vertical. Media and broadcast is one of our largest verticals. We do serve oil and gas, corporate IT, medical, and so on, gaming industries. So here are some of our customers who have, proudly taken Falcao and deployed it within their environment to achieve fast file transfer. At this point, I'll welcome Chris to talk about LiveU. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Elton. So just a little bit about LiveU. We're the inventor and patent holder of live video over bonded cellular networks. So about 10 years ago, the company was started with the goal in mind of replacing satellite as a method of live transport using 3G cellular networks. Obviously, we've come a long way, and cellular networks have come a long way, and nearly 90% of all broadcasters around the world today use some form of cellular transmission as part of their regular day-to-day live shots. You've actually seen our technology in action if you've watched the news just about anywhere in the world. In the United States, for example, during hurricane season this year, the hurricanes were extensively covered with our technology because you didn't have to put up a satellite dish, and the cell towers are obviously wind loaded to 170 miles an hour. So if you were watching any of the major networks during that coverage, you would have seen our technology in action. We have a protocol that we developed called LRT. It's short for LiveU Reliable Transport. It's a UDP based protocol that's designed to do both bonding and error correction across non-guaranteed networks such as cellular. We work with major broadcasters all over the world. FileCatalyst and LiveU have a lot of mutual customers. We've got streaming solutions in the cloud and a couple of other platforms and services available for live video distribution. But obviously today we wanted to talk a little bit about this next slide here, which is the LU600 unit and our DataBridge capability within that. So the LiveU 600, you see a picture of it there on the right-hand side, is a portable unit. It's about the size of a dictionary, and it weighs about 3.6 pounds. It has a built-in integrated battery that runs about 4 hours, so it's a highly portable unit. And we even make the ability for our broadcasters that use standard batteries to extend the life of that with external batteries. We have our what we call video bridge mode and data bridge mode. on the platform. And the video bridge mode is obviously our live component, but wanted to talk specifically about DataBridge today, and we'll show you a little bit more of that at the end. And we also now have a DataBridge only version of the LU600. So for customers that are looking for a solution that is centered around file transport, it basically turns the LU600 unit into a super hotspot with up to 8 integrated modems in the platform, that would distribute the workload across multiple cell carriers, multiple modems, and so you really can get maximum performance in virtually any situation in the field. So Elton, I'll throw it back over to you.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Chris. And so we'll talk about using the different file transfer tools when it comes to transferring files across the DataBridge. So as we all know, there are different services and tools available out there. Some public file transfer services, FTP, and then we have FileCatalyst. So before we jump into that, let's talk about the underlying transfer technology. What makes FileCatalyst fast? So the whole idea around file transfer and the things that prevent file transfer from performing really well on your network is due to the fact that latency is involved. So what is latency? So latency is the round trip time it takes to send a packet from one location to the destination and get an acknowledgement back saying that packet has been received. When it comes to FTP, FTP is a very serial process. So we take a set amount of packets, we transfer it across, we wait for all the packets to be received, and then we'll transfer more packets. The further away you are, the longer it takes to get these acknowledgements, the slower the whole overall file transfer process becomes. With FileCatalyst, we do things a bit differently. We'll take the file, we'll break it down into multiple blocks, and this is a technology that really comes in handy when we're talking about leveraging performance over the LiveU DataBridge. Is these blocks are sent independently, and we only acknowledge packets that are missing. So we don't have to acknowledge every single packet. We only acknowledge what's missing, which allows us to be a much more efficient protocol, which means that opposed to spending time waiting for acknowledgements, we're using the same time to transfer more data. And hence, we get the file across your network really fast and in the shortest amount of time possible. So how does latency affect speed? So if you look at the comparison between FileCatalyst and FTP, let's take an example. You have a 100 megabit per second link. So you can see your x-axis of the RTT and your y-axis of the throughput. As the latency increases, this is the RTT, you'll notice that FTP, which is the red line, starts dropping, and it will drop down to a crawl based on how much latency you inject into the network. Whereas with FileCatalyst, we are immune to that latency, so we don't care how far the two endpoints are, or how long it takes to send a packet and get an acknowledgement. We'll guarantee you transferring files across that link as fast as possible. So, other than transferring files really fast, what are some of the other features within the protocol that allows us to be a secure, reliable, and efficient protocol? So it's a UDP based protocol with our own proprietary retransmission and congestion control. It's patented. We can transfer speeds up to 10 gigabits and more with encryption, again, on any commodity hardware. We're not affected by latency, so regardless of how far the two endpoints are, we'll guarantee you to always maximize your file transfer speed, your link. We're multi-core leveraged in that sense that we can leverage other features of the product as well as transfer files really fast, meaning that you can use features like encryption, MD5 checksum, compression, without compromising the transfer speed. So I mentioned congestion control and network fairness early on. Let's talk a bit more about that. So what is network congestion? So this happens when a link carries more data than it can handle when you're trying to transfer more than what you're allowed to on that link. So how does FileCatalyst play fair? So FileCatalyst will immediately detect the destination receive rate, and it will react accordingly. We'll make sure that we're never oversaturating your link. With congestion control, we'll detect other applications coming onto the network using that bandwidth. We'll slow down, give them space. But at the same time, if you wish to tune FileCatalyst to ignore any extra traffic, you can configure FileCatalyst in that manner. There's no tuning required for links from 1 megabit up to 1 gigabit per second. We'll quickly ramp up and reclaim any unused bandwidth. As I mentioned, we'll slow down when we see other applications. Once the applications are done using the network, we'll ramp up and reclaim that unused bandwidth. So how fast is Fal Catalyst? I have a couple of charts here that will show you the differences between FTP and Fal Catalyst on 2 different connections. The top chart is the 1 gigabit per second connection, and the bottom one is 10 gigabit per second. So if we look at transferring a file from Amsterdam to London, we have a 10 gigabyte file in this case. The latency is about 50 milliseconds. And if you'll see, FTP takes about 1 hour and 28 minutes, whereas Fal Catalyst, we can transfer a 10 gig file in 1 minute and 23 seconds. From New York to Buenos Aires, the latency is about 150 milliseconds. FTP takes about 3 hours and 6 minutes. Whereas with Fal Catalyst, again, we're transferring that file in 1 minute and 23 seconds. The same file, the transfer is going from LA to Mumbai. We have a latency of about 220 milliseconds. FTP takes about 3 hours and 22 minutes. Whereas with Fal Catalyst, again, takes about 1 minute and 23 seconds. If you have a faster connection, 10 gigabit per second, the 10 gig file, again, LA to New York, about 70 milliseconds of latency. We can transfer the file in 8.4 seconds, whereas FTP will take you 2 hours and 19 minutes. Again, 10 gigabits from LA to Rio, 3 hours and 27 minutes with FTP. With Fal Catalyst, the same 8.4 seconds. The last line, London to Sydney, the latency is about 300 milliseconds. The same file, 10 gigabyte file, FTP will take about 5 hours and 50 minutes. With Fal Catalyst, it's still the 8.4 seconds. So as you can see, this goes to illustrate that we're immune to latency. We don't care how far the 2 endpoints are. We'll make sure we transfer the file in the same amount of time across any of these conditions. So when it comes to working with the LiveU DataBridge, we have a number of different products. Our Fal Catalyst Direct is our flagship file transfer product. We do have File Catalyst Workflow, which is a web-based tool that allows you to ingest and distribute files. It sits on top of the File Catalyst Direct solution. And in addition, we have our File Catalyst Central product, which allows you to manage applications, see what's going on in your network, see all the transfers, get alarms, and so on. But when it comes to file transfer, our File Catalyst Direct is our core product that allows you to perform these transfers. On the left-hand side, we have our client applications. As you can see, we have a different number of client applications. We have a hot folder for automation, our desktop client for ad hoc transfers. We have browser-based tools that allow you to perform transfers from your browser. We have mobile apps, as well as SDKs that allow you to embed our technology within your application. All the client applications interact with our File Catalyst server, which is on the right-hand side. The interaction happens over across any internet connection, and that's why in the center, we're going to show you the LiveU DataBridge. And Chris, if you want to talk about how you guys handle that from an LU600 standpoint, that'll be great.
Sure. So, when it comes to the DataBridge platform, we kind of act like a dumb pipe in many ways. We have the ability to connect to our unit either via Ethernet or via Wi-Fi. We can support multiple clients on the other side as well. So if you connect an Ethernet switch or connect multiple Wi-Fi clients, that would work. There are then, as I mentioned before, between 6 and 8 cellular cards in the field unit. We also have an additional unit called an extender that can add an additional 6 connections, and every connection is treated individually. That would then traverse across the internet. On the top and the bottom, we have what we call the gateways, either an on-premises gateway or a cloud gateway server. In this case here, we're not actually talking about our bonded data bridge mode. So we have 2 modes. One is a gateway mode where all traffic would actually pass through one of our gateways, forming a fat pipe to transfer data through. The other method that we have, which is what we're specifically working with FileCatalyst here, is our multi-pipe mode, which allows us to treat each modem as an individual flow and send packets across it, really being able to leverage some of the very advanced features of the FileCatalyst protocol. And obviously, at the end of the day, on the far right-hand side of this diagram here, you need to transfer a file or retrieve a file, for that matter, from a storage server on the other side. and we would be the gateway to be able to handle that transfer.
Great, thanks. So, on that note, the client applications that's running on, whether it's your Mac or your PC out in the field, would either connect to the LU field unit over Wi-Fi, or you can plug it directly into the box or a switch that's connected to the box, right?
Correct. Exactly. So we're not running a special piece of software for FileCatalyst. We've just we have a mode that basically is optimized for FileCatalyst utilization.
Cool. So, talking about the DataBridge again, the DataBridge and Falcao. Because we have a unique patented UDP-based algorithms that again break the file down into blocks and send each block across the network as its own entity. We're able to treat each cellular connection independently. So when you're out in the field, you can leverage many tools, whether using an Avid, Media Composer, whether it's Premiere Pro, Woody Algis, Kino, the different solutions out there that are meant for field use. And with Fal Catalyst, we're integrated across all these platforms. So you can work with and leverage the file transfer mechanism right from within these applications to achieve really fast file transfer. And Chris, I'll hand it over to you to talk some of the uses and benefits of the LiveU DataBridge.
Awesome. So, we see this, there's obviously many use cases of this, but the two primary use cases that we wanted to highlight today would be broadcast field crews in sort of two benefit or two modes here. One would be uploading finished assets. So back in the day, all footage used to be edited back at the station. They would, shoot all the raw footage, send the vocal track back, and they would edit all of that at the station. Obviously, since laptops and NLEs, nonlinear editors, have gotten so powerful, they're just editing in the field now, and they'll send back their finished news package for any pre-produced content. Also, you'll notice during some stories there might be in a field piece some sort of file footage or a pre-produced asset, maybe a graphic. Those are generally created back at the station and sometimes are quite large. And so you would have to download those files back from the station to the field editor so they could insert them in their edit process and then upload that entire piece back to their media asset management platform, their production asset management platform, or whatever target workflow they might have on the other side using something like Vantage or a file transcoder. We also can see use cases here in post-production as well. In many of the same, same use cases, where you might have a field crew that's producing something, not necessarily also doing live, just doing post, where they'll do shooting and then need to upload that directly to the station, or they'll be on the road and need to get large files back down from their MAM platform. And so we can see use case in post-production as well. But because of the way the technology works, virtually anybody could use this. So, in the security market, if you needed to upload security footage, you could use FileCatalyst as the accelerator and the DataBridge as the portable unit. So there's multiple other use cases beyond just broadcasters. And just some of the main benefits here, obviously, fast access to the original raw footage. Nothing is more important to the broadcasters and many viewers than quality. So you don't ever want to work with proxy video, and you want to work with the real high quality video, the original files. So you've got that option. You don't need to use a streaming methodology and feed it in a linear manner. A fast file uploader is going to give you an optimized delivery mechanism so that you're not just literally in a video bridge type mode where you're streaming live, hitting play on one side and record on the other. It's not an optimal workflow if you already have a finished file in place. And really, allowing video journalists to stay in the field is a big benefit to broadcasters because it means that they can produce more content from the field versus having to go back to the station and edit it, and giving them, full bidirectional access while they're on the road. Means that they're not, they're in, it's almost like being in the newsroom. It's an extension of their operation by virtue of the fact that they now have the ability to send and receive files at very, very fast speeds.
Great. Thanks for that. Now, I guess the best part of the webinar, the demo. So I'll go ahead and make you a presenter,
Perfect.
and you can go ahead and show your screen. Cool.
So we set up a little bit of a custom environment here. I'm on one machine with the webinar link so that you guys can see what's going on. And I've directly connected to another machine that is only connected to our DataBridge in my laptop, just so that you can see the full benefit of the way our DataBridge platform works with FileCatalyst without interfering both with the webinar or seeing any other types of strange traffic. On the top left-hand side here, I've got a view of what our touchscreen on the LU600 unit actually looks like. We're already in DataBridge mode. DataBridge mode is already running. If I jump into the settings here and then take a look at the DataBridge settings, you'll see that I'm in multipath mode and that the Wi-Fi access point is on, so that I could actually navigate to the Wi-Fi access point. For speed purposes, we are connected via Ethernet, because Ethernet is going to give us the fastest throughput to the DataBridge unit. One thing that I'm also going to show you here is the connections. So I mentioned a couple of times now that we always are using multiple connections and multiple modems. So this unit currently has 7 modems in it. It's got 3 AT&T modems, 1 Sprint, 1 T-Mobile, and 1 Verizon. Excuse me, 2 Sprint and 1 Verizon. And you can see that we've got a couple of modem slots that are open. Slots 1 and 8 right now are unpopulated. And then we can see the bandwidth for each one of the modems that's associated. So as we're doing the demo, you'll actually be able to see exactly what each modem is doing and how many kilobits per second are actually being sent out a given modem here. So we've got 2 workflows that we wanted to highlight. And I'll talk, we'll show you one workflow, and Elton will talk a little bit about it, and then we'll show you the second one. So this first workflow that we want to show you is a TCP based workflow for FileCatalyst. So I'll just jump in so that you can see. So if we jump into connection, you can see we're using the TCP protocol within this workflow. And I've got 3 files here on my desktop. So they're just for illustration purposes, garbage files. But to prove to you, we're going to take this 1 gig file. I'll pull up the get info. You can see it is 1.05 gigabytes on the disk here. I'm going to drop this into my TCP workflow, which I've got labeled as Virginia, which is the terminal server that we're using. And I'm going to execute this workflow. And so when the workflow starts, you'll obviously in FileCatalyst start to see the task upload here, and then you can see on the left-hand side exactly how many kilobits per second each one of the modems in the LiveU platform is running at. So right now you can see, we've got 12 megs out that AT&T modem. This T-Mobile modem is pushing almost 30. So every modem is basically pushing as fast as it can, and I'll let Elton talk a little bit about what you're seeing on the right-hand side here in terms of the graph.
Yeah. So the transfer is happening over TCP, but it's not standard TCP. So here at Falcao, we developed our own proprietary multi-streamed TCP, which leverages multiple TCP streams to get sort of a better performance out of TCP. The reason why we're showing TCP as well on this webinar to show you the option that we do have UDP based transfers, which we'll show you next. But with TCP, we can also try and get a good amount of use out of your bandwidth. Again, by leveraging our core TCP multi-stream TCP algorithms, we're able to really saturate and push that those links independently without having each one of them act as its own link. The idea around this is that we have really specified a high number of streams. So I think right now we're using about 60 streams, which allows us to push up to 75, 77, 80 megabits per second across the 7 different connections that we have. And you'll see on the right-hand side that, the left-hand side that each one is pushing about 8, 9, 10 megabits per second, which equates to what we're seeing across all those different SIMs. So the transfer will happen, and as you can see, it took us about 2 2 minutes to transfer 1 gig file, and the transfer completes, and the whole file is sent across from from the field with 7 modems.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that was a TCP-based workflow. Let's and I'll show you what this looks like here. We now have a UDP-based workflow. So if I come here, you can see that we've got the protocol selected here as UDP. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that same file in just one moment here as this transfer wraps up sending the
there are 2 files in that folder, so it's sending the second 200 meg file.
Oh.
Yeah.
My
a little bonus.
Well, let me just get rid of this file for now. So we're going to take this 1 gig file here. I'm going to drop this 1 gig file into our second workflow that I just showed you, which is our UDP-based workflow. So we've got this, and I'm going to execute this workflow, and you'll start to see the same thing in terms of the file transfer. So it will fire up, and you can see the graph starting to climb, and we're sending UDP here. And I'll let Elton talk a little bit about how the congestion control here is actually working.
Yeah, so on this transfer, we have congestion control, which will, the idea is that as we start detecting, packet loss events, we'll start slowing down and so on. The way our congestion control works right now is across all combined paths. So as soon as we see congestion on one path, we'll unfortunately slow down. We are making improvements to change the way we do our congestion control to treat each path independently, and this is some improvements are coming out in the next version. But as you can see, we're getting around the same speeds. The transfer happens. Because we're based out of the US and the latency between where we're doing this demo from and to the servers, there's not a high amount of latency, but we are going over the 3G, 4G. So you'll see that even though we're close to the actual location, the latency is high, is because when you're looking at going over 3G, 4G connections, you always end up having latency, a high amount of latency than if you're just to plug in your connection into your standard ISP. So even though the latency is high, you can see it's spiking up to 300 milliseconds, dropping down. We'll still maintain the same speeds around 75 megabits per second, which we're seeing with TCP.
Awesome. So I'm going to let this file finish uploading. While this is finishing uploading, we also wanted to show you the workflow for being able to retrieve a file back down from a FileCatalyst server that would be located off-site. So if you were in the field, you can open up this file browser. With the connect icon, I'm opening up the LiveU Virginia file. It's going to grab a file list here in just a second. And then we're going to grab one of these files, and we're going to download this as well. So it does work both ways in terms of the ability to upload and download files with DataBridge and FileCatalyst. So let's give this 1 second to load up. Let me cancel this task quickly just in case it's interfering here. Cool. So we've got a couple of files. We've got the 100 meg, the 1 gig, and a 200 meg file here. So I can select this 1 gig file, and I'm just going to drag this down to my desktop. And you can see it's starting to download that file. We'll get the data rate transfer here. Note that it's measured in kilobytes here, not bits. So this number is going to be a little bit lower because we need to multiply it by 8. And then you can see on the left-hand side that we've got a spread of modems on the download side. And right now we're downloading about 3 megabits per connection or so, coming from the DataBridge running on the LU600 on my desk here. So This is going to take a few minutes to complete, and it does take a little bit of time to ramp up sort of to its maximum bandwidth. But it's very easy as a field crew now to reach out and grab a feed. Reach out and grab a piece of pre-produced or finished content at the station and pull this down to your unit, to your laptop to be able to edit appropriately. So with that, I'll throw it back to you, Elton, and we can wrap up the demo here.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so let me go ahead and switch back to my screen here. Let me just go back to present mode. Yeah, and yeah, so time for Q&A. So looks like we're getting a couple of questions in. Yeah, so someone asked, was the TCP faster than UDP? So if you looked at the graph that we were showing, the TCP and UDP speeds were around the same. And I was mentioning the reason for that is because our multi-stream TCP will function comparable to UDP when the latency is not very high. So you'll notice that the speed of TCP was around 75 megabits per second, whereas with UDP, the red line was showing 75 megabits per second as well. So the speeds were comparable. When you're looking at transferring from the field, the latency is a lot higher, so you will definitely get better performance out of UDP than with TCP when you're out in the field. Obviously, from a demo perspective, this is a controlled environment, so the latency is not high. But when you're in the field, you'll definitely see better, better speed improvements from UDP than from TCP.
And certainly adding to that, I mean, I'm in a very good area with this unit right now for cell coverage with 4G coverage, but we obviously service a lot of customers that are in developing countries, or war zone correspondents that are maybe only on 3G networks, and so being able to use the 3G network, although the latency is potentially substantially higher than a 4G network, using multiple flows and multiple modems at the same time, plus FileCatalyst is going to give you a really good throughput on the unit.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. Another question's come in. When do we need to use a gateway versus multi-pipe?
It's a good question. So the multi-pipe mode is harnesses a round-robin type packet scheduler. So it's very good for general internet browsing, where you're talking about lots of little TCP flows. It's obviously also excellent for the FileCatalyst use case in terms of being able to break up a file across multiple flows simultaneously and be able to leverage any given modem to its fullest capacity. Gateway mode, building what some might call a fat pipe, is good for things like VPN, where we can't actually fragment the traffic, or like a video stream such as RTMP. So single large TCP flows would kind of be the use case there from a technical perspective. But to a customer, if you're connecting over VPN, or if you're trying to do an RTMP video stream up or down, for example, you might want to use the gateway mode instead.
Cool, thanks, Chris. Yeah, another question. What would a client need on their end to make this work? So from a software perspective, any FileCatalyst client, but from a LiveU perspective, Chris, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, so obviously the FileCatalyst platform in place. Our LU600 DataBridge that has just is using a multipath does not require any additional terminal server, because all of the modems are just sending directly to the destination server. We do have a gateway that can either exist in the cloud or can exist on premises for customers that have a lot of internet bandwidth on their own. So if you are using our gateway mode and bonding the modems together, both up and down, you would need a terminal gateway server, either provided in the cloud or at a demarcation point.
Cool, thanks. And another question. how many modems do you need in order to get the best use out of this solution?
It's a great question. So, the FileCatalyst, the way it breaks up into multiple discrete flows, the more modems, the better. The faster that we can actually transfer this. So, I was demoing with 7 modems because that's what I've got available at the moment. But if you put 15 modems in here, and in theory, it could run even faster. And so in multipath mode, the more modems that we can get, the better off it's going to be in terms of speed. In most, U.S. networks that we work with, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, and AT&T, they're all going to have, very comparable throughput speeds. So 6 to 8 modems is going to give you, excellent performance across the networks, and that can all be built into the unit. You don't need any external device in order to do that, just the LU600 DataBridge.
Great, cool. Yeah, I got another question coming in. Does FileCatalyst require a specific license for this workflow? That's a really good question. So from a FileCatalyst perspective, you can use your existing license, provided you have enough bandwidth allocated in the license for exposing these workflows. There's nothing special from the license perspective. In order for the client applications to work, you need to make sure the license is enabled for that. Speaking of licensing, we do have a number of different licensing options that I'll mention. Our perpetual licenses, is what we've been selling, for the longest time. Recently, we have exposed our per hour consumption on AWS, as well as Azure is coming out soon, and so is Google Cloud. But we also now offer per gigabyte consumption. So this goes back to, if you're going to be receiving X amount of gigs from the field for a specific event, you can opt in for our per gigabyte consumption model and only pay for the amount of data you have transferred versus tying into perpetual license based on the events you're covering, etc. So these are some of the different pricing models we offer from FileCatalyst when it comes to leveraging the DataBridge functionality and FileCatalyst.
And I should probably add on there, Elton, that there is a DataBridge license for our units as well. So out of the box, our traditional LU600 that has a video card in it for encoding as well does not have DataBridge mode. That's an option. So that's an optional license that you can get with the LU600 unit. And then on the DataBridge only unit, obviously there's no video card, and it comes with the DataBridge license out of the box. So we've got a couple of different ways to license the technology.
Cool. And then there's another question: is how is the pricing model going to look with the solution from Falcao compared to the cable solution you have? Is that a question for me or you? I'm not sure. But I'll answer from FileCatalyst, and maybe if you want to chime in from LiveU side, Chris. The pricing model is the same. Again, as I mentioned, you have different pricing options. You can pick and choose which pricing model works best for your workflows. If you're doing continuous events, or perpetual licensing may be a better fit. But if you're doing one-off events whereby you just need a license for a short period amount of time, our consumption-based license may work better for you. We do offer licenses where you can pay for an amount of data you transfer. But yeah, so reach out to us after the webinar, and then we can understand your workflow a bit more and provide you better options in terms of pricing.
Yeah, agreed. We're in the same boat here too. We've got we have lots of different ways. You can lease a LiveU unit, you can buy a LiveU unit, you can provide your own data. Most of our customers go through us in the United States to provide data. We also have a partner network around the world to service our global customer base. We have roaming units that can work in 170 countries. So there's lots of different ways that we can slice and dice this. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. There's a one-size-fits-one, and we've got lots of sizes.
Great. That's a good way of putting it. I like it. I think I have one more question coming in. Can we use it with FileCatalyst Avid Interplay Delivery Accelerator plugin? Yeah, absolutely. So the Avid Interplay delivery plugin works over any internet connection. So technically, you could have a remote Avid workspace sitting out in the field that's connected to an LU600 that's transferring all your assets from your remote location back to your broadcast center. So yeah, absolutely. Think of it as the LU600 is an internet connection, and and we can basically accelerate over that internet connection. Yeah, and a good important question: will you showcase this at NAB? Yeah, I guess so. Right, Chris? We're showing something at NAB.
Yeah, so we've got we've got LiveU 600 units. We'll be demoing our DataBridge functionality. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're interested in seeing this in real time, be sure to stop by the NAB booth, and we're more than happy to talk about it.
Yeah, so we're in Falcao is in South Lower, I believe 11516. You can actually see our booth number on our website, so feel free to stop by our website. If you need a pass, you can also sign up for a pass. I believe we have links on our site. Chris, your guys' booth is South Upper, right?
We're actually in Central Hall,
Central, okay.
all the way by the North Hall side of things. We're in so many numbers in my head. Yeah. I don't have the booth number handy, but we're on the near side of Central Hall, closest to the North Hall gallery.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so yeah, someone put it up there. C2617. There you go. Thank you.
Marketing.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is.
Yeah. So yeah, and do you have a solution with Dalet's system? Again, we can take this question offline. You'll have to tell us more about your workflow with Dalet and what you're looking to do, and and we can we can help you out based on your requirements, etc. Cool. I think so. At this point, we're going to call it because we're coming towards the end of the webinar. We have a couple more minutes left. And so we will, guess, come to an end here. Chris, thank you very much for joining me and co-presenting with me on this webinar. I think it was a great webinar. And also thank you so much for preparing the demo. It was really good to see people being able to perform transfers from the field to an LU600 out to a server sitting up at the broadcast center. But yeah, thank you very much, all those who attended, who took the time to attend this webinar. I hope you guys found it, really good. There was a lot of good questions, so thank you for that as well. If you have any further questions, our contact information is on the screen. Chris, if you have any comments before we sign off?
No, this is great. Thanks everyone for your time. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing everyone at NAB. Be sure to stop by C2617 and visit LiveU. I'll be there. It'll be great to see everyone, and really looking forward to having our customers use the solution in the field. We feel it's a tremendous offering and can really optimize a lot of workflows and change the way people work. So
yeah, and I believe you guys offer ability for customers to demo it and stuff on their own. Do you guys have that program? Because if you need a FileCatalyst license to perform demos, etc., by all means, reach out to one of your account reps or myself, and we can get you set up with that.
Definitely, we're in the same boat. If anyone needs to demo DataBridge, let us know, and we'll make sure that you get taken care of.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and yeah, have a great weekend. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.